And we are live. Hello, my lovelies. Oh, hold on one second.
There they are.
Hi. How's it going?
Making us sweat.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
We are so happy to have the lovely and talented Aiden Thomas here with us today. So very
Oh my God, thank you
excited.
so much. Oh, look at them. Oh, they look so good together. Oh, I love it.
I have the other two books, but they're currently packed. I had movers here yesterday.
Yeah, I get
You
it.
caught me in the middle of a move.
Oh, no, that's rough.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for writing this fan-freaking-tastic book.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm so glad y'all liked it.
Oh, okay. Like is an understatement. We loved it.
Yes. Also, before we get further along, my husband wants to know if he can come in and say hi because
Yeah.
you're one of his all-time favorite authors.
Stop.
So I thought I would ask.
Me so much.
I just thought I'd ask permission first before I had him bombard.
Yeah, I'd love to say hi.
I will text him and tell him to come here.
Also, I don't know if you remember, but Kaylani and I actually met you at Y'all West.
I absolutely remember that. Yeah, it was very fun.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you're going to be on our show. And you're like, I am?
And then I was like, oh, wait, no, yeah, I remember. Sometimes
we have a few people here that wanted to say hi.
Hello. Oh, I'm so excited.
So,
hi, y'all.
This book, I've been telling people it's Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games and queer. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perfect way to explain it.
What inspired you?
Oh, God, a lot of things. Honestly, a big one was that when I was younger, I loved Percy Jackson, as many of us did and still do. But it was kind of hard to see a way for me to like enter that story as like myself. And I think one of the like most fun parts about writing fantasy is being able to like envision yourself in this world. Hello.
Oh, you can't hear. Hold on.
I know. I was like, hi. Hello. How's it going?
Good. How about you?
Oh, I'm good. What's your name?
Sterling.
Sterling, it's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming on to say hi.
Yeah. When he told me you were going to be on, I'm like, I could say hi, right? Please.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Because my brain's not here today.
He said my brain's not here today.
I didn't
Honestly,
go to bed after 5.
me most days. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to write a fantasy where I could see myself in it. And I was also very interested in the Hunger Games. There was like some really specific things about the Hunger Games that I really wanted to like explore as a writer. A main one being, I always thought it was really interesting and like maybe unrealistic that all of the, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Hold on.
No worries.
That all
we've all been there.
I thought it was weird how all of the career tributes were like, I would really like to murder people. And I was like, that's strange. And how odd that all of them want to do that. So I kind of wanted to create a caste system because we have the golds who are like famous and powerful gods and demigods. And then you have the jades who are the gods of more mundane things. So like our main character Teo is a jade and he is the son of the goddess of birds. So while the golds get to go to this fancy, yeah, exactly, but while the golds get to go to these like really fancy academy and kind of learn how to be the heroes of Vanderbilt, Teo gets stuck at like public school and has to wear the same like ugly lime green gym shorts as everyone else. And I kind of wanted to explore what it would be like for those careers or those hero golds that we have who've been raised to, you know, be the protectors, to be these heroes from their when they're children, and like how does that affect how they move through the world and like understand the world. And then you have Teo, who is like, I call him my friendly neighborhood Spider-Man character, who is like,
Yes.
yeah, right.
Yes.
He's like very involved in his community, and while he doesn't feel like he has a lot of power or impact, for me, it was really important to kind of push across this idea about the importance of community and how people living within a community best know how to take care of and support that community. So yeah, those were the big things that I wanted to tackle.
I found it really interesting how it kind of showed like the whole grass is greener on the other side, but it's not.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, you know, the golds, they get all this luxury and they're famous and they go to this academy, and I'm stuck with like the regular people. And then the golds are like, yeah, but you get to do things. You get to have fun. You get to have friends. You get to,
you get to be a kid.
Yeah.
Where we just have to do this all the time.
Yeah. And they like don't even, for folks who are like raised and supposed to be like the heroes of these like mortals and humans, they rarely interact outside of like pulling them out of a burning building. So they're actually like very socially awkward when it comes to humans. Yeah. And Teo is like, what are you doing?
I think that one of my biggest questions that I really wanted to ask is, I feel like, you know, 10, even like maybe 5 years ago, there weren't books that represented not only the LGBTQ+ community, but also the disabled community. So what is it like writing a book like that? Do you feel like it's something that you find easy to write because you come from a place of experience, or do you find that there's a lot of pressure to write something that people are going to see themselves in?
There's always pressure because there's like a lot of standards and expectations at this point. And, you know, something that's really important to me is that I make sure that when I'm writing these stories, which are, you know, diverse across race, gender, and sexuality, that I am taking care of my reader and that I'm not accidentally doing or saying something, because I have my own internalized like stuff, which is why I always hire sensitivity readers whenever I write my books. So there's a lot of pressure for sure, but mostly it's freeing and it's exciting, because you bring up disability, and I got to write about my first deaf character in this book, and I myself am deaf, so that was like a really cool and important thing to like build in accessibility into the trials, and to kind of put forth this very important lesson that like having a disability is an issue. It's having societies and structures that that aren't accessible. That's the issue. So I kind of wanted to like present a world where that's being taken like seriously into consideration. And it's also stressful because I feel like as marginalized creators and authors, suddenly if we put out a book, it's like, okay, this is the book that represents like the trans Latinx experience. And that's, I mean, so false. I say this all the time, but like you could, like for Cemetery Boys, for example, you could find another trans Latino guy who's also queer to write that book with the same exact like premise. And it would be two completely different stories because everyone has their own different relationship to their culture, to their identity, and it manifests in different ways. So kind of helping to put forth the idea that like there is no monolith when it comes to like, you know, being trans, queer, or Latinx, and that we have very, very different stories and perspectives and stuff like that is something that I feel like we as writers are kind of constantly pushing back against and being like, there can be more than one.
So this week with all of my moving stuff, I haven't had the opportunity to physically read anything. I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks because I've been painting and doing all kinds of stuff. And I listened to both Cemetery Boys and the Sunbearer Trials this week. And I really thought it was very cool that not only did you had a trans Latinx queer, like you had everything. Your audiobook narrator was all of the things too, and I just thought that was so cool.
Yeah, and really fun. For Cemetery Boys, it's Avi Roque. And they are, trans Latinx. And then Andre Santana is who did the Sunbearer Trials, and they're also share those identities. And for me, it was really important when I was kind of going through this process of getting published that I was looping in as many people who are part of my communities and share my identities as much as possible, because it's so important to have that representation, but to be also carving out space for folks who like have those identities so that we can like really push forward, like audiobook narrators who are also part of these marginalizations. It's so important to me, like community is so important to me in general, that I wanted to make sure that I'm still building that community with all the work that I'm doing. And I'm very lucky in that Macmillan really understands that, and they have been really supportive. Even like my cover artist Mars Ladaba is also under the trans umbrella and uses they them pronouns. So yeah, it's just been really fun. It's like it's like I have this really cool privilege and this opportunity, and I can't think of a better way of using it than like pulling in as many people into the industry as I can along the way. It's really great.
Like when you read your books, you can feel that sense of community throughout every single one of the books that you've written. I read all 3 and I've loved all 3, but it definitely has a sense of community in almost every one that you write. And I love that not only on the outside portion of, writing and putting these together and bringing in people that feel like they fit in your community, but you can feel it in your books as well, which is so awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That makes me very happy.
I do want to point out with Sunbearer Trials, there was an entire scene that I actually put one of my sticky notes at work in, where it was discussed about being trans, and where I want to make sure I pronounce his name right. Zio.
Yeah, Zio.
Zio asked Teo questions about being trans, and I have a lot of friends who are transgender, and the big umbrella of the queer community that I hang out with here in Oklahoma. So it's like, after reading that scene, I literally broke down crying at work reading that scene. And I was like, well, I am buying this book for everybody for Christmas, because I'm going to, like, especially everybody in our little queer group, because everybody will really appreciate that scene. Because I'm like, here, read it. Like, just that scene alone, read. Because that was handled so perfectly. And I think that is one of the best conversations in any book that I've read with trans representation, to have a discussion about being trans and how everybody's identity is different to each individual. And I love that.
And the other thing, excuse me, my throat is like, I've been talking too much apparently. Another thing about that scene I really wanted to do is that something I haven't seen very often in YA literature, but Meet Cute Diary by Emery Lee does a really good job of it. But having characters who are like, oh, I'm trans, and then like suddenly like jumping to the binary of it, and then being like, hold on, wait, maybe I'm not all the way over here. Maybe I'm somewhere like in the middle. So having a character who had kind of already like gone through the transition process and then was like, something's still not feeling right, was really important to me, to kind of show that like, sometimes that does happen. Sometimes you're like, I'm here, but no, I'm actually over here. And then it's like, well, actually, maybe I'm somewhere in the middle. I just kind of wanted to show that it's, not a binary thing. Sometimes it's a spectrum, right? It's somewhere in the middle. And not only that, but sometimes it's fluid. And sometimes it moves back and forth across that spectrum. So that was a really important scene for me to write. So I'm glad that it hit home the way I wanted it to.
I liked how at one point it was like, it's okay that you don't know, really, and that you don't have to decide right now. And I thought that was great.
Thank you.
We have some comments and questions from viewers, so I want to pop those up here. Trent wants to know how we all are today.
Tired.
I'm doing great. I'm tired.
Just tired around the clock.
I mean, I didn't get home till 4 a.m. last night from
oh my gosh,
seeing a drag show. So
that's a good way to stay out late.
And how are
I'm
you?
good. I'm just like, I'm fine. My voice is just kind of going out. I did a lot of talking yesterday, and I feel like I haven't recovered yet.
Jeff says, I loved meeting you in New York. Hope you enjoyed your first book tour. I know you were so excited for that. I saw you like posting about it.
It was literally so much fun. I had an absolute blast, especially the New York stop was an especially special one because we like closed out the library and these poor like library workers are like, we have to go home. And I was like, I understand. So I went out onto the street and I got like a bin and I squatted on the sidewalk and like continued to sign books until I got through everybody. And that was really fun. And everyone was like really chill about it, which I appreciated. Yeah,
Which library were you at?
It was the Bronx Library.
Is that the one like that has like the treasures exhibit?
I don't know because they kind of just whisked me away downstairs and then I like into the theaters. I'm not sure. I didn't get a good look around, but it was really fun.
There's one. I actually just got back from New York too, and there was we went to the big library where they have like the treasures exhibit where it has like the original Winnie the Pooh and all that.
Oh yeah. So I went to the Bronx Library, and I did go to that library, and I got to see the original Winnie the Pooh, which was really cool. They also had like a page from Malcolm X's memoir and like his leather briefcase, and I stood there for like 15 minutes just staring at it. It was so cool. They had really
Virginia
cool
Woolf's
stuff in there.
cane.
Yeah, just like the wildest stuff you could like ever imagine. That you would be like, how does this even?
Note to self: go to New York.
Charles
really cool.
Charles Dickens' writing desk was there too.
Yeah, that's right. Charles Dickens. Right. I was like, what is happening? This is wild. It was really cool.
What made you decide to become a writer?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know if it was much of a conscious decision, to be honest. I was an exceptionally reluctant reader when I was a kid. And it was because my mom kept like shoving like contemporary like problem novels at me. And I was like, this is so boring. I don't want to do this. And we couldn't afford like after school daycare for a very large chunk of time. And so my daycare was being dropped off at the library. And the poor librarians would have to like put up with me for a few hours. And my mom always made me check out a ding dang book in order to like be able to go home. And I was like, oh, fine. And what I would usually like get were the Wishbone books because they had the cute dog dressed up on the covers. And I was like, that's cute. I'll get that. And another one was Animorphs. Because like the old school books, you could flip the corner and they would like turn from the human into the animal. So yeah, I would just get ones that I was like, I'll stare at this for a little while to pretend that I'm reading when I'm at home. But then I actually started reading Animorphs. And Animorphs changed my life. That series still holds up. It is freaking incredible if you really want to. I mean, it's like middle grade and it really unpacks trauma and like child soldiers, and it's oh my God, it's a heartbreaking series, but it really incredible. Oh my God, I love it so much. So I think once I was like, oh, I can have fun and do like fantasy, then I was like, okay, so books might be kind of cool. And I didn't start writing until I started writing fan fiction. That's actually how I started writing. And then I would argue I kind of just kept doing fan fiction until I wrote Lost in the Neverwoods, which was my thesis for my MFA. And that is just Peter Pan fan fiction. And then I tricked someone into buying it and publishing it.
I have that one too, but I haven't read it yet. And I can't believe I haven't read it because I am like the retelling person. I love retellings. And so really that was the one I was most excited for.
Yeah.
I pre-ordered it. I pre-ordered Sunbearer Trial too. And
yeah, it's a good book to read for spooky season for sure.
Yes.
But
it really is.
Yeah, but that one, like literally, not a lot of people know this, but Lost in the Neverwoods started as a Wattpad story, and then I got it published. So it's like, it offends me so much when people dunk on like fanfic writers or like use that as a insult, and I'm like, that's literally how I learned to write.
I used to write a lot of fan fiction as well, so it's like, I get it.
I just want to say, Aiden, you are one of my favorite authors and have given all of your books 5 stars.
Oh, stop. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That makes me so happy. I feel like my goal for writing books is just to make sure that people have fun. And that's especially true with the Sunbearer Trials. So yeah, I'm excited.
Jess says it's the Bronx Library Center on Kingsbridge. The Treasures exhibit was amazing in the big library in Midtown.
Yeah, it was so cool.
I mean, I
so...
think.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll let you go, Kaylani.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that Mel, Clint, and I were talking before we got on, and this is the one downside of reading a book as soon as it comes out, because that ending, and we're all like, so
listen, Sterling read it before me, and he finished it while sitting next to me while I was reading something else, because you're one of his favorites. He usually, like, if he buys the book, I let him read it first, because he reads a lot faster than I do. And he just looked at me, and he just started cussing. I was like, why are you cussing? He's like, I need the second book like yesterday. And I was like, don't tell me that. And then I finished it, and I texted him cussing up a storm going, ah!
Yeah, the ending to book 1 is pretty rough. And it's funny because my poor editor, like the twist that happens at the end of book 1 was originally supposed to be the inciting incident for book 2. And then I was like, I don't know, I really want to like have a cliffhanger. And my editor was like, Aiden, a lot of people don't like cliffhangers. I was like, okay, but what if we did? So, yeah, I feel like the end needed like some extra like oomph to it. So yeah, that's how that ended up playing out.
I think it was the perfect way to end a book. I personally am one of those people. A cliffhanger will get me to read the next book.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people out there that don't like cliffhangers. I'm a huge dark romance reader, and there's one particular author. They know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
There's one particular author that writes cliffhangers, and I will read her books, hunky 500, 600-page books in a weekend. And I'm like, just give them all to me. I just need the whole series, because how could you leave me like that?
And I mean, like, with cliffhangers, it makes it where some of us actually pick up the sequel the minute it comes out.
Yeah, that's
unlike
true.
some other series where I'm like, I read book 1 in 2018 and I have the rest of the series and I still haven't touched it, because I'm like, I am interested in continuing, but am I though?
Yeah,
like,
kind of
that ending didn't like snack you to be like, do you really want to know more?
Yeah.
This, on the other hand, I'm like, I need more.
Well, I'm still writing it, so it's coming. It's still being written.
So this is just a duology, right? Or is it going to be a series?
Presently, right now, it's just a duology, yeah.
Because I could live in this world for a very long time. If you want to write like 10 books in this series, I'm down.
I have a lot of...
I told Sterling I want a book about each of the gods and each of the kids, like like their stories.
Yeah.
So that I understand what they go through, on why they are who they are.
Right. I'm sure there's a few of them.
Jackson, this could definitely be one of those series that you just continue on in the world, and we're just like, yeah, we'll be there.
Keep giving them to me.
Yeah, I think that's what's really fun about the Sunbearer Trials, is that there's a lot of possibilities, and I have a lot of different ideas for like spin-offs or continuations or prequels and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll see.
I very much enjoyed Cemetery Boys. I read that one first, or listened to that one first. But the Sunbearer Trials, that was just like, it was another level. I thought it was fan-freaking-tastic. I thought like it had, the intensity of the Hunger Games, and like that somebody could die and this and that, with the Hunger Games. But it had that fun humor of like the Percy Jackson books. And there were so many times that I laughed when I was listening to it, because I was in there painting and I'm just like, burst out laughing, because I'm just like, that is so funny.
To add on to what you were saying about the Percy Jackson part, this book also felt like it had nostalgia to it. It's like, it felt like where we were barely even into the story, and it felt like we've been with Teo for how many years now, and it felt like it's that nostalgic of how Percy Jackson was when you first read it, and you
Oh
get to
yeah.
learn about all the gods and all the kids, and like that's what fascinated me the most about this is a culture that isn't my culture, so I'm always open to learning about other cultures and stuff. And I love how immersed this was. And I was just like, I just want to live in this. Or could this be a movie, a show, something, so I
I
could
would
just
love
live in
that.
this forever?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun, and I'm so glad that you guys appreciate the world building, because I over world build, and then my poor editor has to like go through and be like, okay, Aiden, we have to, you can't like describe the world in 80 pages. You have to cut it down to the first 20. And I was like, ah. So I'm very glad, and yeah, it was just so much fun. And for me, it's really important. Because I know when I was a reader, I hated reading really heavy books. I was like, I'm not interested in this. So for me as a writer, I really like making sure that, while I'm covering, kind of heavy topics, that there's always still a lightness to it. Because I want you to have fun, and I want you to laugh while also kind of maybe unpacking some of your own trauma and issues and stuff like that.
Or your own house.
Yeah, and I think that the ending of the Sunbearer Trials really kind of personally, yeah. I think
Family trauma.
Truly, the last like 2 chapters of the Sunbearer Trials, I think, really encapsulate my being like really big, heavy stuff, but also here's some lightness, especially like the last line in the Sunbearer Trials for sure. I wanted people to laugh before they closed that book.
And speaking of sequels, we got the exciting announcement that Cemetery Boys is getting a sequel, which I am so pumped for. Is that always the plan, or did that kind of come after it was written?
Yeah, Cemetery Boys was definitely just written as a standalone. And it's funny because it took my publisher 3 tries to convince me to write a sequel. And it's because Cemetery Boys is so important to a lot of people. I didn't want to just write a sequel to like make money or to like put a sequel out. I wanted to have a story that I felt could stand up to the original. And I don't think I'll ever be able to write another Cemetery Boys, but I'm hoping the idea that I have for this sequel is gonna live up to those expectations, and that people are gonna like it. But yeah, it took me a long time. I had like kind of one plot, and then we started negotiating. I was like, no, never mind. And then they were like, what about now? And then we started negotiating, and I was like, no, it just doesn't feel right. And then like a few months ago, I like woke up with a start, and I was like, oh my God, wait, I have an idea. And like immediately texted my agent, and I was like, wait, I have something. And like, let's get a contract together. So that was exciting. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be told from Julian's point of view. And when I pitched it to, when I like was writing the pitch for, to convince them to buy it, my comps were, The Sixth Sense meets Final Destination, but if it were written by a golden retriever. And it's funny because at first my agent was like, I don't understand the golden retriever part, so she like took it out, and then we sent the pitch to my editor, and my editor was like, this looks great, but it sounds like pretty dark. And I had to like email her back, and I was like, Jennifer took out the golden retriever line. I was like, it's like those 2 movies, but written by a golden retriever. And she's like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So there's still like a lot of like light and like laughter to it. But yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be really fun.
That's funny, because I was going to say with the sequel, I would have loved to gotten his perspective, like his story, his backstory and all that, because there's so much that we don't know about him in the first book.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and it's going to take place during the holidays, so it basically picks up right where Cemetery Boys left off.
Oh, we do love a seasonal read.
Yeah. I mean, we do have our season-athons.
It's very on brand.
So I have a question for you. Which character do you most see yourself in?
Oh, out of like all of my books, or out of Sunbearer?
Okay, I would say out of Sunbearer, and then out of all of your books.
Okay, out of Sunbearer, I think It's okay. It's tricky. I think me now, Mia is very much my self-insert character.
I got that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
just
get
kind
that.
of like having like here for a good time, and the kind of like chaotic ADHD brain that she has, she definitely inherited from me. But at the same time, I feel like who I am now is very different than who I was as a young adult, especially as a teenager. So if we're looking at like kind of scared and closeted, and like awkward and anxious Aiden, who was younger, that would be Zio. I put a lot of like the anxiety that I felt into his poor little body, and his stresses of trying to like get through these trials. So yeah, I think probably the two of them are a good mix. I love Teo, but he's far too bold to be me. I would not have the guts to say and do some of the stuff that he did. But across all of my books, Julie, it's okay. This is funny because on paper, I think everyone kind of assumes that Yads is my self-insert because, like, if you were doing a checklist, we have very much the same like identities, but it's actually Julian is my brain in the form of like a character. Very chaotic. Again, more ADHD.
Little
and like
ADHD,
just like
little golden retriever.
Yeah, that whole energy. So he was,
I can see it.
which is funny, and that's why Julian and Mia are two of the easiest characters I've ever written. And I think it's because
love Mia.
I like understand their brains. Yeah, she's so great. She was really, really fun to write.
I would love to see these characters in like real life, like see a show or a movie of them, because it's hilarious trying to picture Mia in my head because of how she's described. I'm just like, I don't know, like just some ridiculously beefy, brawny,
The
girly.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, I
she
think
was like,
my favorite tail line from the entire book is when he's like, "Do you want some candy?"
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We have some more comments here. Tori says, I just finished reading the Sunbearer Trials today and definitely giving it 5 stars. I wanted to go to war for our main character.
Listen, these characters, there's some that you just want to put in your pocket and like protect with dear life. Granted, I will state, because the twist at the end, I won't spoil. I did not trust that character from the get-go. I thought they were being a little too, like, this is too easy, too trustworthy. Something's wrong. I don't trust him. And then when it turned out, I went, I knew it.
I'll say that I did not. When how do I say this without spoiling anything?
They seemed too weak.
When Teo did not do a certain thing towards the end, when Teo did not do a certain thing, I didn't expect that outcome. I thought something else was going to be.
Yeah, I didn't expect that, but
we weren't expecting this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I suspected the person, but I did not expect it to be the way it ended up being. I was like, oh, well, that's a lot darker than my brain was thinking.
It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. It was like, I think that's what's happening. Oh.
Literally, I was at work and I literally paused and my boss walked past me and just stood there watching me for 10 minutes as I'm staring at the ceiling, listening, going, is this really happening? This is really happening, isn't it?
I'm glad it wasn't an obvious ending. So yeah,
nope.
I had a lot of fun writing.
It's just
that one.
I read far too much mysteries and stuff, and I've been reading mystery thrillers since I was a kid. So it's like anytime someone does something that is too obvious, I'm always like, "There's something up with you. There's something wrong. I don't trust you. You're being too
Red
nice,
flag.
too oblivious to everything." Red flag.
So Amy says, in the middle of a live buddy read, but wanted to pop in and share my love for this story. I'm looking forward to the second book. Cemetery Boys was so much fun to read. Love the lore in the books.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. Yeah, again, I had such a blast writing them. So yeah.
Hope says, at the ending, I stared at a wall for like 5 minutes being like, what am I going to do with my life until book 2 comes out? We all feel you.
Hello, Hope.
I already know that as soon as the second book is set for pre-release, I'm buying it. Same.
Oh,
I will say it was like, I was talking with Hope the other day, and I was like, this is almost as bad as, like, actually, this is worse than Iron Widow. When we both read Iron Widow and the way that one ended, and both of us, like, she read the arc before the book came out, and she's like, I've been needing someone to read it. And then I finally read it. We talked about it, and I was like, how are we going to wait a year for this book? I can't wait a year. And now I'm over here, I'm like, again? But I'm more excited for this one than I am the Iron Widow one. And I'm like, both are getting pre-ordered immediately.
She said, I wish I would have recorded my reaction to the plot twist because I was screaming. I didn't expect that. And Tori says, when I got to the end of the book, I literally had to track down my brother in his room so I could gush and explain. I in the middle of the book, I was gushing to the cashier person at Taco Bell drive-thru. I was literally in my car listening to it while I was in the drive-thru. This is at midnight. I've been painting all night, and I'm at the drive-thru of Taco Bell, and I was like, "Do you know who Aiden Thomas is?" And the guy's like, "No." I was like, "Do you like to read?" And I was like, well, let me tell you about this book. And I was like, it's Percy Jackson meets Hunger Games and queer. And he's like, sold.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And
sparks a lot of joy. Yeah.
I know this is one because of the fact of the mythology that is used. Because of me being who I am, I always like to ask these type of questions.
Yeah.
Would you consider it more like Mexican Hispanic culture, or is it more Aztec-y culture? Because I felt like it was kind of could have been a blend, but I was just like, I wanted, because this is something that I'm like, I want to learn more, so I want to research the right things. I'm fascinated.
For me, it's very much because I kind of wanted to create a whole new pantheon of gods and this whole new world, and I wanted it to reflect my culture, but my like direct relationship with my culture, which is contemporary like Mexican living in like California culture. So for me, when I decided to start world building, it was around that. So like it has reflections of colonialism because Mexico was colonized and we had so much of our culture completely wiped out and replaced by Spanish culture. And so I didn't want to like ignore that. So I wanted to create a world where all of those complexities are kind of acknowledged. And that's why like a lot of the regalia is like, there's charro pants that are involved. There's like different dresses. Otzi's dress, for example, is a Jalisco ribbon dress, which is the state that my family is from. So I wanted to like be representing that. And a lot of the cities are inspired by cities and places in actual contemporary Mexico. And having a god of like pan dulce and stuff like that. I wanted it to be like, obviously contemporary Mexican culture is influenced by Spanish colonizers and also influenced by Mesoamerican cultures. So when I was writing this book, I wanted my world to also be reflective of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
I totally wanted to have some marigolds to have like in the background here, but I didn't have time to see if I could find some.
Yeah, I think you can always find marigolds and probably jaguars in my like Latinx fantasies that I write.
So I actually, when I was talking to your publicist and arranging all of this, she had asked about questions, and I was like, well, we don't really have like a set list of questions that we ask. But I said one question that I want to ask is the jaguars. Is there like something symbolic with the jaguars? Because I noticed that that was a big part in Cemetery Boys. And then there's also that brought up in Sunbearer Trials as well.
Yeah. So in Mesoamerican cultures, jaguars were a big deal and kind of in different ways, but the main reason being that when we had our ancestors, like the tops of the food chain were humans and jaguars. Like jaguars couldn't be killed by anyone other than humans and vice versa. Or like, like more realistically, if a human is going to get killed, it's going to be by a jaguar. And so they really put them on this pedestal and they became symbols of power, but also of the paranormal. And like where jaguars are a huge thing in Mesoamerican cultures also. I'm simplifying that term, but they're seen as like a status symbol also. So like kings, like jaguar pelts are a symbol of not only power, but of wealth and kind of, the dominance over like the most powerful animal that was like within these regions. But they're also very closely related in Maya culture specifically to Xibalba, which is the Maya underworld. And then you have Aztec warriors, where there were eagle warriors and there were jaguar warriors. So again, like the powerful entities. I can't even think right now. Like it's symbols of power and of death. And I personally really enjoy writing about death, apparently, which I didn't really realize until like someone pointed it out and they were like, "Hey, you write about death a lot," and I was like, "No, I don't." And I was like, "Oh, wait." So I think that's my personal preoccupation. But yeah, so that's kind of where the jaguars come in. They're just a very important like cultural image, if you will, among a bunch of different Mesoamerican cultures, even like the Olmec. So yeah, those always pop up.
So now that you've written and published 3 full-length novels, did you find that there was one that was easier for you to write and one that was more like emotionally draining that really took a lot out of you?
Cemetery Boys was the easiest book I've ever written, and I don't know if I will ever be able to top that. I wrote the first draft in 6 weeks, not by choice.
Wow.
But it flowed like very easily and very quickly. And I think part of it was just I didn't have any expectations on myself at that point. I was just like letting myself write the story that I wanted to be able to read when I was a kid. So I think that one just flowed so easily. Lost in the Neverwoods was tough because that was like my thesis for my MFA program, and that was a long journey of like writing the first draft, editing it on my own, and then trying to get a book deal. Because Lost in the Neverwoods is the first book that I sold, but then when I pitched the idea for Cemetery Boys, they decided to flip their release dates. And Sunbearer Trials was really, really hard. Almost painful, I would even say. And it's because it was my pandemic book. So it's like when I was locked down in quarantine, that was the book that I was working on. And going through a global trauma is not a great way to be creative. So that was really, really hard. And I feel like that's kind of what I was grappling with while I was writing this book, because it felt like the world was ending. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have an escape, and like this is what I'm gonna work on. But
and the world's ending in your
yeah, and it's like hard to be like it was just hard to be creative when when everything was going on. So that was a really difficult book for me to write, but I'm super happy with the way that it came out. I listened, just to like give you an idea, I basically drafted this entire book when I was working at my previous job, and I was an office manager for an office that was closed down. So I was literally in this like 20 square foot office by myself in a conference room listening to Inside by Bo Burnham as I was like drafting this book. And it was funny because like we, Spotify like year in review happened, and me and my friends were like, sharing what our top listen to, whatever it was. And I, not to brag, was in the top 2% of listeners for Bo Burnham. And when I shared that in the group chat, and my friends are like, should we have been checking on Aiden? And they're like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm great. What do you mean? So like even in the Sunbearer Trials, Bo Burnham is the very last person that I thank because he kept me company that whole time for like a year.
I was going to ask you how long it took you to write the Sunbearer Trials.
It was about a year. Yeah, I mean, the first draft was probably like 4 or 5 months, but the whole editing process and getting all that done was closer to a year before it was ready to go off to copy edits. Yeah.
So comparatively to from Cemetery Boys, to it's a big difference.
A huge difference, and yet it was still harder to write the Sunbearer Trials, even though I had all this, extra time.
But I will state, with how your books are published, I think they're published in the correct order. Seeing as Sunbearer or Cemetery Boys is that lighthearted golden retriever kind of, but still deals with death. But then you get into Lost in the Neverwoods, which gets really dark.
Yeah, very dark.
At parts, which I think both of those, if people have read those, it helps them to be very prepared for what happens in Sunbearer Trials, because it gets dark. Not as dark as Lost in the Neverwoods, but it gets dark.
Not yet, anyways.
At least,
No.
You cannot hurt our hearts like that.
Oh my! See, I haven't read that one yet, so I'm like,
Oh yeah. Brace yourself.
It's a Peter Pan retelling. Just be
Amy
prepared.
says, love hearing the lore, where the lore comes from. Glad I was able to stay this far into the chat. Thank you, Aiden, for great stories. Have to get back to the sprint. I'll catch the host in the after show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have an after show later this evening where
cool.
We just chat and be stupid.
Two of my favorite things.
It usually involves lots of alcohol. Well, not for me, but for them.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to get a drink right now.
Currently, I'm pregnant. That's not gonna happen. I wish it was happening. I could use a drink right about now.
Last night, people kept looking at me going, why aren't you drinking so much? I was like, I'm drinking tomorrow night. But they're like, but you're here now. And I was like, I'm the designated driver tonight. At my apartment tomorrow is where all the alcohol's at. And I don't have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nice. Very convenient.
Listen.
So I know you're working on the sequel to the Sunbearer Trials.
Yeah.
You're working on the sequel to Cemetery Boys.
Yes.
Are you working on anything else?
So much. I have 4 books under contract that haven't been published yet. 4, yeah. So we have
including these 2 sequels?
Including those 2 sequels. So we have oh God, I almost just said the title of the sequel. I cannot. I have known the title and I have seen the cover for such a long time that I am constantly like on the verge of spoiling it. I like did an event
Tom
recently. It's bad. It's really bad. I did like, oh God, it might have been like a year ago at this point. I did a classroom visit with a college class who had read my book. And I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you about the sequel, but I can't tell you the title because it's secret and I'll get in trouble. Anyways, in blah, 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 and just like said the title. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, you guys can't tell anybody. So that constantly happens. So yes, there's the sequel to the Sunbearer Trials. There's the sequel to Cemetery Boys. And then after that, I have my first contemporary romance that I'm really excited about. That's more on like the rom-com-y edge. And it is about a stealth trans boy's first year of college. And his plan is to get an apartment on campus, not like see anybody, not like really make friends, just kind of like work, get through college so that he can kind of like move on and start his life. But unfortunately, because of a clerical issue, he can't get an apartment and ends up being in a co-ed dorm. So it's kind of about the foibles of trying to be stealth and trans and sharing a public bathroom with a bunch of other boys. And then he also gets a crush on the boy who lives down the hall who offers to tutor him in math. So I'm really excited for that one.
You're just saying all of the buzzwords right now.
We're like,
I'm really
and sold.
excited. Yeah, so that one's gonna be really, really fun. I've already written the first draft, so we're kind of like in the editing stages right now. And then after that, the fourth one I have under contract is my first sci-fi book, because I was like, yeah, I'll do high fantasy for the first time. How hard can that be? I'll do sci-fi. How hard can that be? Never written sci-fi before, and that one is tentatively titled "Gay Titanic in Space," and I'm very excited to work on that one. It's gonna be really fun.
We're so sold on everything.
I mean, you just said all of Sterling's buzzwords just in that title alone.
Titanic in space.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
We have 3 shelves head to toe of just queer books.
Incredible.
That's what we majorly read in this house.
Yeah.
And then he has his historical fiction shelf back there that he, is obsessed with.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah, I'm booked and busy through 2026. That's my dog.
We saw your dog.
I know, we're like, dog.
I feel like hurts.
We all 3 have dogs, so
yeah.
This is a question we ask all of our authors.
Yes.
Is there, when you're writing, is there an item or something that you always have to have with you while writing? Because as an example, Janelle Angelis told us that she has this little red bird that has to sit on her desk or she can't write.
I love that. I don't have a specific item. I kind of pick and choose different items that are gonna keep me company. And right now, as I'm drafting the sequel to Sunbearer Trials, my friends got me this really cute stuffed bird. He's blue, so he kind of sits on my desk while I'm writing. So he's
another bird.
Yeah, another bird. Yeah,
that makes sense.
But
it fits too, because the blue bird, the feathers.
Yeah, and I get a lot of gifts from readers. So my office is kind of just full of things that readers have given or made for me. So those decorate my desk too, and that makes me feel connected to my readers, which is really, really wonderful. I can't tell you how much I love getting small things from readers. It it just makes me really happy, and it makes me feel less lonely when I'm writing. That's really nice. But I think the thing that I really need is my mechanical keyboard. I have the same one for all 3 of the computers that I have across my home and my office downtown, and that I need the tactile in order to be getting any work done. When I have to use my laptop keyboard, it's the worst thing ever. I hate it.
It doesn't sound
They're
the same.
so shallow.
It's
not as satisfying. So that's.
I just bought a typewriter, so I'm I want to do stuff.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah. So those are the big ones for me, for sure.
We also always ask, is there a snack or beverage that you have with you every time you're writing?
Yeah, and it's gonna gross you guys out. I usually, when I need a snack thing to keep me going, it's because it's in the middle of the night and I'm exhausted. So I do this really disgusting thing where I get sugar-free Red Bull, and I get red vines, and I bite the ends off and use I know it's disgusting. I use the red vine straw to drink the Red Bull, and it's gross, but there's something very satisfying with how squishy the straw gets. And then it gets me enough caffeine where I can actually stay awake and finish my job. Kaylani is so done with me.
I think it's just because I don't like red vines, and I'm you said Red Bull, and then you said red vines. I'm oh, that's fine. But then the fact you put them together,
I'm over here going as the person who's allergic to caffeine.
I would.
I'm this is the only caffeine I can have, which is black tea.
Oh
so that's where I get all my caffeine from.
I'm currently drinking this.
Yeah, that's more my speed.
I would totally try that, just at least once.
I'm I'm not a fan of red vines. I'll do it with Twizzlers.
I love red vines. I like taking whenever I go to the movies, I get a Diet Coke and then put the straw in it, and that's my favorite thing. Yeah, it's gross. It's totally disgusting, but
everyone has their thing.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, we used to do those sour straw things and ices.
Oh yeah.
Well,
those are amazing.
cruise ships to avoid pollution, like polluting the water with straws flying out and stuff. They use these straws that are candy straws.
Oh yeah, the like
for all
sugar
their drinks.
cane
Yeah.
straws. Yeah.
And so you just like bite them and eat them. But if you leave them for very
Yeah,
if
they
you
get
don't
funky.
drink it fast enough, eventually they do get soft. So
Yeah.
your straw goes.
Just kind of fall apart.
It just kind of flops over.
Yeah.
I think the very last question that we ask all of our authors, I think it's one of our favorite questions, is what are you currently reading, and what is a book or a couple of books that you absolutely recommend that everybody reads?
Yes.
Oh God, where is? Just
Put you
one
on the
sec. The
spot.
book I'm currently reading is right over there.
Okay, perfect.
I'm a spooky season person. Like Halloween is very important to me. And one of my favorite like Halloween IPs is the Headless Horseman. And I found this, Raising the Horseman. Yeah. So I just started reading it last night or the night before. And I'm really, really excited.
I just
really
read
fun.
and reviewed this for Disney Publishing.
Did you like it?
I ended up giving it a 3-star because I liked half of it, and then the other part, like I'm very critical when it comes to Sleepy Hollow retellings, which I also read Sleepy Hollow as well.
Oh, the original?
The original, not this copy. But like I just needed a friend of mine sent me this, but it's really good. To see it through Katrina's von Tussel's eyes, it's really fun, and the fact that this is a sapphic retelling.
Yeah, it's also sapphic, and that's what I saw it on shelves, and I was like, "Shut up!" They wrote about my favorite IP, and
I was like, I saw the color
of
your. I was like, I saw the color of your book, and I'm like, you're saying spooky season. I'm like, I have it right here because I just finished it last week.
It's called Raising the Horseman
by Serena Valentino.
Not to totally derail the conversation for a second,
she's the
but
author of those little.
She did like
Disney
all the villains Disney books.
Yeah, those little.
Okay, you're derailing the what?
Life.
Yeah.
Would you have any recommendations for Sleepy Hollow retellings, by chance? Do you know any other ones? I mean, if you do, just let me know. But
I haven't read it yet, but I just checked this one out from the library.
Oh, that's a very cool cover.
Horseman by Christina Henry, which is supposed to be a continuation. It's supposed to take a couple of 30 years after the events. And one of the older people were there when it happened. So I'm super excited to read this soon.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I just love Sleepy Hollow. The Headless Horseman is like one of my favorite things in the world. And
also, are you a huge Disney fan?
Yeah.
Because have you watched Ichabod and Mr. Toad?
Literally, I watch it over and over and over again.
Then you will really appreciate 2 scenes in Raising the Horseman because that movie is referenced.
Oh, I'm so excited.
The character with the principal being Mr. Toad. Just so
God.
you know.
Shut up. Oh my God. Okay.
I saw that and I flipped out and I handed it to Sterling because it's one of our favorite movies. I was like, here.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Excited. I'm literally so excited. Yes. That's so funny. Okay. Okay. But on to book recommendations. I have 3 that I would love to recommend. The first one is Pilar Ramirez and Escape from Zaffa by Julian Randall. And it is like a middle grade. And it's a fantasy where she gets sucked into like another world, and it's Dominican fantasy. So it's dealing with like the Dominican boogeyman, which is called El Cuco. Yeah, El Cuco, but then we also call it El Coco or El Cucuy. It's actually in a lot of different Latinx cultures. So this is a great one. Julian is also just an absolute dream. This book, I love it so much. It is called How to Succeed at Witchcraft by Aslan Brophy. And it is.
I just added that to my wish list.
So good. And there is, I won't shut up about it. There's a hair washing scene in this book that changed my life. It's incredible. I super, super recommend it. It's
Okay,
It's literally
you
so
say
good.
that, and my brain instantly goes to South Pacific, the song where I want to wash that man right out of my
Yeah.
hair. Wash that man
It's
right out of my hair.
It's so good. I'm obsessed with it. And then my last and third one is The Lost Dreamer by Liz Perta, which is another secondary world fantasy that's really honoring Mesoamerican cultures. And Liz Perta is incredible and really funny. And this is a really, really gorgeous, gorgeous book, and also very, very queer. So yeah,
I have the
incredible.
audiobook of that, and I've been meaning to get to it for so long.
It's really good.
Like,
It's really
I
good.
have to do it now.
So yeah, those are my 3 recs for sure.
Love that. Yeah, we love a good queer book here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably one of my favorites. We were talking about it before the live show. Is Caleb Roerig's Death Prefers Blondes.
Oh yeah. Caleb's
Jewel
wonderful.
thieving drag queens.
Freaking love it.
Yes. Yeah. What's not to like?
I don't know.
Let's see, I'm
This
looking to see if
book's
I have any other
amazing.
questions.
If you want a good queer fantasy,
I do love a good queer fantasy. Who's it by? Alexandra
Roland.
yes.
Oh, cool. Cool.
It's thick. She's a thick baby.
She is thick.
I will state this is very slow burn,
I love slow burn.
but it's like one of the best slow burns I've ever read. And I was just
Oh, I
like,
love
when they finally, I went, hi.
it. I love it. That's great.
We have a few more comments here. Oh wait, I read that one already. This one. The Sunbearer Trials was the first book that I read of yours, and I'm definitely going to buy Cemetery Boys and Lost in the Neverwoods next.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you like it.
Sign me up for this rom-com. It already sounds amazing.
Speaking of, with the rom-com, is it
Mhm.
labeled YA or is it labeled new adults or adults?
I love that you asked that question. And I was very explicit when I pitched this book that it had to be categorized and marketed as young adults. And I believe that because queer folk, we often don't actually get to explore our young adults like milestones until we're out of high school and kind of free to be who we want to be. So for me, for that reason specifically, I was like, this is a young adult because this is a coming of age story, even though he's 18 or 19, you know? So yeah.
Awesome. Who is going to invent a time machine so we can read these books sooner?
I mean,
I'm going as fast as I can, I promise.
isn't his name, is it Jules Verne or was it Hugo something that wrote the time machine book? We could just grab that book, pull it out.
Love it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and it was also such a pleasure getting to meet you in person too. You are just adorable and sweet as can be.
Thank you so much. This was very fun. So thank y'all for inviting me. I had an absolute blast.
And we'd love to have you back sometime in the future. Maybe when the sequel comes out. Or or when the rom-com comes out.
It was like, which sequel?
Yeah, so we're very excited. We want it all. We want it all. We just want to devour it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This was very fun.
And did you have anything else that you want to share with our audience? Anything that people need to be on the lookouts for?
Gosh, I don't think so. Just, I mean, thank y'all so much. Yeah, I finished my tour. I got home last Monday, so I've been recovering ever since. And yeah, it's been really fun. And thank y'all so much. Honestly, the best way to support me is by telling your friends about my books if you enjoyed them, because it's really, I can do as much like pushing and marketing as I can, but honestly, it really comes down to is word of mouth and readers sharing their favorite books with other folks. So yeah,
tell them the Taco Bell drive-thru guy.
Or go to his website and purchase merchandise. Which we already have a wish list of those as well in our house.
Yeah, I have a charity merch store on my website. My website is Aiden Thomas. And basically how it works is that I front all of the costs out of pocket to create whatever the materials are. And all of the proceeds, 60% goes to the artist that created the merch, and 40% goes directly to charity that we change out every quarter. So I get no money. I actually lose money on the shop, but it's a really big passion project of mine. So yeah, if you like Cemetery Boys, Lost in the Everwoods, and we're going to be dropping some Sunbearer merch in, I think, November is what we're aiming for. So yeah, if you feel so inclined, we have a whole bunch of really cool stuff and some really cool new stuff coming out. I'm very excited for the new merch drop. It's going to be very, very, very cool.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Aiden. And thank you to everybody that came and watched and asked questions and comments. And of course, Clint and Kaylani for coming and co-hosting this. And it's been a fantastic readathon, and it's still not over yet. We still have like another week almost. And whoever is interested in coming and hanging out with us at 8 o'clock, we have our after hours Get Stupid Drunk live show. It's our
at 8 p.m.
sorority.
Eastern, yeah.
Eastern.
Yes, sorority/fraternity mixer, because the whole theme this time is university
fun
kind of thing.
With our
SeasonAthon Academy.
Oh, I
with our
love that.
schedule.
Our course
Very
classes.
cool. I love that.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give us a big thumbs up. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye.
Thank y'all so much.
And
Bye.
broadcast.